Hey, my name is Brian Curtis, and I'm the founder of Decentralized Systems. And today I've got Tucker Miller, who is an executive coach, Dustin Steffi is a podcaster. I'm glad to have him, and Augusta, who's got a supplements business. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Thanks for having us.
me.
Yeah. So since I got
us.
Tucker in the upper left, we'll start with her. Can you tell me a little bit how long you've been doing your business
Sure.
and how you got into it?
So there's two answers to that question. I've been in business more years than I really want to admit, but let's call it 25 because I'm more comfortable with that.
Okay.
But I've been doing some form of coaching, consulting, advising my entire career. And I actually started out in the courtroom. So I was a trial attorney for a number of years and have been both a consultant, employee relations, human resources, training and development, speaker, the whole 9 yards. And my business, Day 6 Leadership, was something I launched last fall. And it really is kind of my, I have a couple people in my life, including a new grandson, that were quarantine COVID surprises. My surprise was that I started to go into a business myself. And so this is my quarantine baby, basically. That in that time of reflection during the lockdown, I started to ask myself the question of, what is it that I don't want to regret at this stage in my career, and who do I most want to help and hang out with? And so I started my executive leadership coaching and consulting practice last fall, Day 6 Leadership, and I focus very specifically on working together, men and women working together to advance women leaders.
Awesome. Yeah, I've actually found myself asking myself the same questions recently. There's that fly I talked about.
There's that fly. You welcomed it in. You predicted it would show
I know,
up.
I said,
Yeah,
that fly is going to come back
door.
at me. I know it is. But, what I really want to do, right? I mean, and how I want to help people and what kind of messages I want to send. I think it's a good question for anybody to ask, especially, when you're thinking about what kind of career you're looking for.
Mhm.
And how you want to affect everybody. And I'll lead to Dustin with that. Since you're a podcaster, maybe you can tell us more about your podcast and how you got into that.
Sure. However you want me to start. I mean, first and foremost, my background pretty simple. I decided out of high school, why not continue to go to school forever? And so I got my undergrad in management and marketing, and then I decided, hey, I love living in school, so got my MBA from Ohio in sports management, and wanted to kind of be a Jerry Maguire. And
Right.
Then I learned that's not happening. So I was like, all right, I'm going to continue to live this school life, and got my doctorate degree in organizational leadership. So that's kind of my background portion, school portion. The podcast, it was kind of like Tucker was saying, it's my baby, right? So it's something that I thoroughly enjoy doing, because with all the education I got, I feel like I took a lot, and I want to be able to give back what I've learned and do it tenfold. Because when I got out of school, I still didn't feel prepared for entrepreneurship and kind of the everyday business things that go on, because when you learn in school, you learn book things. You don't learn the very real life, like if it hits you in the face, something happens, like you don't know what to do. And so the podcast came about because I wanted to give back to people who wanted to chase their own dreams as well, and be able to have the resources and be armed with key nuggets to kind of start chasing their own dreams instead of working I call them slave jobs, by the way. So don't get upset, because it's working for the man, right? It's working and chasing someone else's dreams other than your own. And so that's kind of how Chopping with Fire came to light. And that happened back in January, and it's been amazing, right? So 9 months in, we were nominated for Best Business Podcast. So probably one of the newest podcasts to actually be nominated. We didn't think we would have any shot in that, and now we're up for winning it.
Wow.
And
Rival podcaster.
I know. Yeah, it happens, right? But that's where the fun is. And I'm competitive. So I played sports in college and everything. So let's do
Game
this.
on.
Game on. Yeah. So it's fun, right? And it's humbling at the same time because again, the whole point of it is to give back to the people and give and provide quality content that makes sense for the people. If I didn't do that, then I would just be like everyone else. So
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I like to comment, as far as business management goes, I actually had a conversation with somebody else in my podcast. I can't remember which person it was. I've interviewed quite a few business coaches recently. And I asked that question, why isn't they don't teach a lot of these things that are so necessary for, especially leadership training, within businesses. They just don't teach it in college. And his answer was, well, I don't know how, I went to school for just 2 years and I left because I wasn't really happy what I was doing there. And he's like, I don't know if you remember very well, but those people are all career scholastic people. They actually don't spend any time in business. They just teach it. So, it makes sense. You kind of teach the basics of the theory behind business, but you really have to understand the relationships in business in order to really, succeed there. But yeah.
the theory part is nice. I agree with the theory part, Brian, but you're
Mhm.
right. Most of my professors, when I look back, and I don't know about Tucker or Augusta at all, but like most of my professors, they were just professors. They wrote books, which that's
Right.
cool. And I'm writing a book right now too, but what real life experience did they have? I know some of mine did, and those professors actually were the ones that I really liked the most.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
Well, I don't want to leave you out, Augusta. Tell us how you're doing, bring us up to date. What made you start your business?
Yeah, I'm great. And first of all, thank you just for having me on here. So I kind of have my hands in a bunch of different pots, I guess, if you will. So I have about 8 years of sales and marketing background, mainly in the health insurance world. But it's funny that everyone's talking about like quarantine babies on here. I had a quarantine baby. And so that's what made me say, and I texted my husband one day, and we're both just super active people. At this point, all of our friends were buying supplements from us, and we were buying all these supplements. And I said, what if we just open a store? What if this is what we're passionate about? Why are we wasting our time doing all these other things that we're not even passionate about? We both want to help people. We both want to be healthy. We want to help other people get healthy. So let's just take all of this energy. Let's take our focus and let's turn it into a business. And it literally in about 8 months grew from that small text into a real life business. And we absolutely love it. It is a journey, that's for sure. I thought my sales and marketing background, I was like, oh, I have this on lock, it'll be fine. And it's a whole new world. That is 100% for sure. I also get to be a softball coach. So I feel like I can take some of that knowledge and like my coaching, and we use that every single day when we talk to customers and when we're building out our business and building that customer base. And it's more than exciting.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You started your business during COVID, the lockdowns then?
So we came up with our idea during COVID and everything, but we actually just opened back in July. We have been working on it for about 10 months now. It stemmed from having a baby during the COVID times, and we don't want to just, at the time, before COVID hit, I was traveling pretty much 24/7 for my job, and this is not enjoyable anymore. This is not fun to spend with my family. I want to be there with my family. And so it was, how can we do that? And what's something we enjoy? And that's kind of where it stems from. And we've worked since then to open. So we've been open for a little over 2 months now.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I mean, my question was sourcing stuff right now, because there's so many businesses that are having a hard time sourcing certain things. I was just wondering if think you're finding more difficulty now than you would have maybe if you started the business 3 years ago. Because I mean, if you've been buying supplements obviously for a long time, right? And
yeah.
Yeah.
Sourcing really isn't, it's actually getting a lot better right now. There are still some things you really can't get, like proteins and stuff like that. There's some ingredients in those proteins that are such high quality that it's very hard to source them. So you kind of look somewhere else right now. Your waiting times might be just a little bit longer, but we have a full store, pretty much 24/7. There's not a lot of things we're running out of and finding that difficult. What we do find is the inflation. I mean, the inflation has obviously hit. That is a little bigger piece of it. I think that's why sourcing isn't so bad, because other people are kind of turning away from it and they're like, well, just wait until this inflation comes down. Knowing from buying it before COVID, it would have been a lot more affordable. The inflation wouldn't have been so high, but otherwise sourcing in about the past 6 months has gotten a little bit better.
Right. And just raising prices. I mean, obviously you have to raise prices just to,
Yeah.
if your sources are higher, you've got to raise prices.
Yeah.
You think it's harder
Unfortunately,
to start up with starting with higher prices? Yeah.
it is. Yeah. I'm looking forward to the day that we get to start bringing those down. And I'm sure there was a lot of, is this a good time to do this? Is this a smart idea to do this? But if we thought, hey, you know what, if we can make it right now during this time, then we can make it 5-10 years down the road, when things are getting better, inflation's hopefully coming down, and probably would have been easier to wait. But I mean, we're enjoying it. We're getting our products in, we're building our customer base, and it's getting bigger every single day.
Cool. So I think we'll take the questions maybe a little bit more personal. Tucker, so what was, and I thought about this when you were talking originally, that you were a prosecuting attorney? Is that
I was a defense attorney.
a defense attorney?
Yeah,
So
but not for criminal, for civil.
Okay. So what were there specific relationships that you were involved with that kind of led you into wanting to become an executive coach in that field? Or
I've always been in a role of subject matter expert, advisor, counselor, in whatever role I've had, whether it was human resources or legal or consulting. So when I started my business and announced it last fall, one of the pieces of feedback I got was, you've been doing this for a very, very long time. You just never called yourself an executive coach. So I think it's been something that's just gradually and naturally evolved. You kind of look back at your life and you start to see your talents. And I work with so many people now who are thinking, what's my purpose? What's my vision? And sometimes they'll look back, just like what Augusta, what you were saying, they'll look back on what you've always done, and what people seek you out for often reveals that purpose that you've been living the whole time, but maybe didn't even notice it.
I agree 100%. I mean,
Yes, definitely.
I mean, I didn't realize how much I liked meeting new people and getting to know people until I really started podcasting. I was trying to build a software company, and then I was just like, what? I just need to make sure I'm meeting people every day. And it didn't matter if I'm trying to sell. I don't want to sell stuff. I just want to meet people and form relationships. So, you just kind of learn just what you want to do, right? I mean, if you realize it's, she's got to mute her dog. You don't have to mute your dog.
Sorry about that. My office mate is usually better behaved than that, so I apologize.
That's okay. My son has a little red min pin who, if somebody comes through the door, she just bounces up and she starts making all kinds of racket. She's not here now, but if she was here, it wouldn't surprise me if something like that happened. So, Dustin, tell me maybe some of your favorite relationships, or maybe have you met anybody doing podcasts just recently that you've kept in contact with? That I've met people that I know I'll keep in contact with, just by doing podcasts with.
Well, first and foremost, I've met a lot of people, which has been amazing. Like you guys were saying before, with podcasting specifically, you meet people weekly. I mean, I'm booked all the way till December. So wow. From January to December, that's 52 episodes, 52 different people. And all of them have a special relationship to me, like as far as what value they've brought in. So, I mean, if you look at the guests that we've had on so far, we've had millionaires, we've had CEOs, we've had billionaires, we've had gym executives, retired NFL people. I have someone working for the CFL as a scout. My most recent one that I had, Gary Guyman, he's a serial entrepreneur and business owner of Dominate marketing firm. And his was fun. We had a good time, and his resonated with me because something came up about burning the boats, right? And it was just a term for you have to let go at some point and take the plunge in order to move forward as an entrepreneur. Because more often than not, what we see with entrepreneurs is they're working a 9 to 5, so they have money coming in and trying to get their business up and running. But then what happens is they're scared to disconnect the 9 to 5 because that's what we're programmed to do,
Right.
is be in a 9 to 5 and have money and resources coming in. And so they don't really burn the boat to be able to hop off onto the entrepreneur side to be able to make money themselves and really struggle.
Yeah, it's a survival mechanism, right? It's like that tide, you have that money source and you just don't want to let go of it because you don't ultimately you don't trust yourself, right?
Correct.
If you get that place where it's like, if I don't trust myself, then I have to go back to the 9 to 5 job. You have to click that switch and say, I can do it. I can do anything that I can, I know I can do.
Well, the other part of the hindrance is just what you said, Dustin, that they're not willing to let go and go into the struggle. And, it is a struggle. It's a startup. It takes a lot of energy. I used to do powerlifting, and I always say the first 2 inches are the hardest inches. If you get it 2 inches off, you can stand it up when you're doing a deadlift, but those first 2 inches are the struggle. And it's hard to let go of secure and just launch into the struggle. And it's more than trusting yourself. There's going to be some discomfort. It's coming.
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
there's
trusting
fear of
that
the
you're
unknown, everything.
right. Then you get
That
through
learning processes can be overwhelming sometimes with those you find out so many new things when you jump into that entrepreneurship and a new world and letting go of that 9 to 5, and that can be a little scary.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'm glad you brought that up, because one thing that I'm blessed that I figured out of myself is finding a routine, right? So a lot of successful entrepreneurs, in my opinion, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but in my opinion, they have a routine that they follow. And I'm not talking just in their business, but for themselves. So like for me, it starts at 5 a.m. I get up, I go to the gym at 5 a.m. I listen to competitive podcasts, not to compete against them, but because I'm learning from others, something that helps add value to me for the morning. I take my shower and then I read 10 pages in a book to kind of upscale myself, and then I get my day started, right? So
yeah, definitely.
it's routine.
Structure is everything.
It's a routine. Yes, I totally agree. And sometimes I will add to that, Dustin, that like with me being a coach, that sometimes my routine is set to a certain schedule as well. Like if we have practice that day, I have a certain routine. If we have a game that day, I have a certain routine. And that also depends on which book I want to read. Like if we have practice that day, I'm going to read I read a Ben Newman, Uncommon Leadership. If we're going to have a game, like I want to know how to lock those players into that game. So it really does depend sometimes on what that daily schedule looks like, on how your routine will differ, and things like your routine is going to be tied to, is it just a normal work day or is it something out of my ordinary a little bit? But the routine it's a lifesaver, but it also just kind of lets your mind focus on something other than just your day-to-day task.
Yeah, I just had this conversation with Janet Harvey last week, and we talked about how you really need to create structure for growth, but you don't want to make it so constrictive to get rid of the creative aspect too. You want to be able to create in that space. So, you kind of have to have that structure to keep yourself grounded, and then still give yourself the ability to create whatever you want to create, right? And I think that's really cool. Yeah.
Yes.
So any words of wisdom there, Tucker? We'll start with you. Maybe give us a story, maybe one of your favorite stories of success stories, maybe a client that came back to you years later and thanked you for maybe something you did for them or something you said. I know I have lots of gratitude for most of the people in my life for a lot of different reasons.
I think there's a pattern of response that I'm get from clients and from people I work with. And the thing that I would share initially is that my dad taught me this saying very, very early in life. And he said, and he was quoting somebody else, so it's anonymous, but how little we suspect the lives of others we affect. And you kind of think about it, sometimes that small little thing or that little push or that little bit of encouragement pays dividends. There's that compounding effect that we talk about, but it pays dividends that you just can't even imagine. And the most important piece is just being willing to show up and be generous and be kind. And I think more than ever, especially in these times, people are really looking for support. So one of the client stories that comes to mind is just very recent. This client was saying, I've been stuck for 2 years, and in less than 2 months, I can't even remember why I was stuck or why I felt the way that I did. But everything about how I show up, how I lead, how I approach my work has changed. And I wasn't entirely surprised by that because I'd been on the journey with her and I could see it, but I just had an intuition, and I said, how are things with your daughter, her teenage daughter? And she said, when I think about my home life, the changes have been so profound and so big. We don't even know how to deal with it just yet. It's so positive and so new. We're still trying to figure it out. But the shift in this one particular way at work just opened the door for shifts everywhere in her life. And I see that often. And it's part of, for me, the addictive quality of the work is when you see the power of impact that you're able to have. I really appreciate that. So thanks for asking about that, Brian. It's fun to reflect on that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And how about you, Dustin? Maybe somebody that was important in your life. I'll share my important story that I've actually never told before. Once you guys get done, it came to mind, and I've always thought about this. But anyway, go ahead, Dustin.
So growing up, I didn't really have any influences or I had a rough childhood. So growing up was a lot of me figuring it out. So a lot of what I'm influenced by is self-drive, right? So I would leave someone with the fact that if you're in a rough situation and something's going on and you feel like you don't have the energy or the drive or the support, pick yourself up, because the people that succeed in life are the ones that continue to fall down and get back up and keep pushing forward. So it's important to just pick yourself back up and keep trying, because if you stay down, then you ultimately just lost. So just keep going. And honestly, like in my podcast, chase your own dreams. If you have something that you're passionate about, go after it, do the research that you need to go after it and get it done.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a failure unless you quit, right? Failure is just a learning experience. I mean, it's actually not a failure. It was an educational experience, right? It taught you something. So yeah, go ahead, Augusta.
Yeah, so obviously coaching now and everything, I played through college. I played softball through college, and I would say that my coach there at college is probably one of the most influential people in my life. One of the things that we did was we did a ton of mental training. So just becoming that mentally stronger athlete and transitioning that into adulthood, if you will, or into the workforce, and becoming that mentally stronger and how to deal with those things. And I've really found that what I thought at the time was just pertaining to our game, was pertaining to school, has led me through this life of what I would consider ups and downs, and making those decisions, and kind of finally realizing last year that, hey, like I want to do something for us, for me, and I'm tired of always working for somebody else. And with my old job, I was making myself available for clients from 7 a.m. to 10:30 at night. And it was one of those where I was like, this isn't for me. This is not in any way, shape, or form benefiting our life. And so I really go back to that a lot in every aspect of life, and every aspect right now of my careers, multiple careers, and use that training. And I talk about mental training and mental toughness every single day, and how can we use it in the situations that we're in, moving forward and reflecting on that, and just being extremely proud of ourselves and something that we can put forward with that mental training. And I am like beyond grateful for that. I think that, quite honestly, that has made me want to be here today. Before that, without that, I probably would have been like, that's not for me, that's not my thing. But realizing, hey, I love to talk to people, I love to talk in front of people, and having that, like, that mental training, I really just appreciate, and makes me think about things just holistically in a whole different view. And without that, I really don't know how people get to the day to day without having those like self-talks and being positive and saying, yeah, if something goes wrong, I can pivot from that. I can make something that is an opportunity, that's all it is. And I can go one of two ways with that opportunity.
Yeah, it's
Can
amazing.
I comment to that, Brian?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the best things that you said, Augusta, I'm basically my own best coach. There's coaching other people, but then we're coaching ourselves. And I think that's a powerful skill to have in life, but especially as an entrepreneur. And the other thing that stood out to me that you mentioned is, I was available to my clients from 7 to 10:30. And somewhere in this process of reordering your life, you decided to make your team, your baby, your family, the most important customers in your life. And, I'm always encouraging, women are so often the primary caretakers of the home or the family, and they're not the only ones. But I said, if you can look at your children and prioritize them the way you do your clients and your customers, you have a much better model for balancing your life.
I found that I 100% agree. I really do. I found, and I kind of now see it in other women, that before, like, we had the baby, those customers and making ourselves available from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep, is we think like we have to, we have that need of, we have to answer these questions. I have to answer these phone calls. I have to get these reports back to them. But that baby comes and it's like, okay, where is my priority? And if I turn 60% of my focus this way, am I still going to feel okay about myself, still feel like I'm succeeding, still feel like I'm hitting my goals? To look at that and be, okay, this is my time for my customers, and this is my time for my family, and we're not going to overlap anymore.
Oh yeah, I actually just had this conversation with my daughter, because she wants to leave the job she's doing now. She's not really happy with it. And she's like, well, I don't want to work 70 hours a week. And I said, well, then don't. It's just, you don't want to work 70 hours a week. If you don't prioritize enough of your own life, then there's no reason to go to that job in the first place, right? I mean, if you don't have that support structure and those people that you're developing relationships, in your personal life and your emotional life, then why are you working 70 hours a week? It's not doing you any good. Yeah.
If it's not positively benefiting you, then there really is no point. And people see that positive benefit in two different ways. And it can be mentally and emotionally, you are happy with your job, you're happy where you're at, or it can be financially. Sometimes they're the same and sometimes they're completely separate. And you really have to prioritize which is more to me right now, and understand that right now is not concrete. So if right now she's like, hey, I need the money, I need that financial to benefit me, it can change in a year or so. But setting those boundaries that's a strong thing to be able to do for anything.
Well, and I think people respect it. I remember I had this case that I was working on, and I had an attorney who called me up from the emergency room because his son had broken his leg, and he wanted to give me an update on the case. And I didn't need that update. He may have needed somebody to talk to in that moment, but it always made me feel a little funny about him, that my case was more important than his son in the moment. And I think, modeling that for our customers, our clients, our family is really important, to set those boundaries like what you're talking about. We don't necessarily gain anything reputation-wise by not setting limits.
No, and that's, I feel like that's a really big shift right now in any business industry, is understanding that setting limits is okay, and making sure that you're putting yourself, your family first. And I feel like a lot of times that's not really pronounced, it's not really put out there of set your boundaries. And you, if you make that known up front, I feel like you gain that respect in the first place, instead of spending a year trying to change your boundary and then gain your respect again. And when you can do it all in the first place. It takes a strong person, though, to do that.
Yeah. I have so much to talk about, but I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Do you have anything else to add, Dustin, before I tell my little relationship story?
No, I think everybody's added a lot of value. So anything that I add would just be a repeat of what we've all brought up.
Awesome. So I'm going to tell you guys a story. I've never told this story before in public, I don't think. When I was born, my dad and I never got along. He actually wasn't there when I was born. And I probably never had a real conversation with him until I was 18 or 19. You know, he just kind of did his own thing. And, you know, so I suffered from that, you know, because you get these feelings that you're just not worth, you know, to talk to, right? Anybody that you meet that goes through that kind of upbringing, you know, you deal with feelings of no self-worth, you know, and you don't realize what your actual worth is. But you know, within the last I think it was 5 years ago, my mom died. And so I moved in and I started taking care of my dad again. And just that process of developing a relationship with somebody that you never got to know before, that was an intimate family member, has done me personally more good, you know, and as far as because all of us are basically the same. And, you know, like, to go back to what you said earlier, Augusta, when you said, you know, maybe you might not have said yes to coming on this podcast a couple of years ago. I get so many no's, right? For about every yes, I get about just as many no's. And, you know, if anybody wants to take anything away from this podcast, it's that all of us are part of the same family. You know, it doesn't matter who I meet or what job environment or what kind of entrepreneur you are or what you're doing. Everybody's here for each other. And it's just that fear of getting closer that's keeping you from that fulfillment that you have the potential to feel. So yeah, that's my going away notice. Thank you all for coming. I've been so blessed to have, you know, you guys with me here today, and thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
having us.
All right. Thanks. Have a good one.